Hi, everybody. I hope that we are live. I'm Pamela Lavitt, the Director of Arts and Ideas and Festivals at the Strom Jewish Community Center and the host of Zoom with a Jew. I'm really excited that our Zoom interview this week, we have Meryl Alcabes, who is a friend and a Seattle Jewish Film Festival committee member and an amazing photographer in our community. And in a moment, before, I just want to say a few words about our Zoom with a Jew and weekly Thursdays, and I hope that you'll continue to log in. I wanted to let you know that this is also on Facebook Live. Hello, Zoomies, and hello, Facebook Live friends. We're so glad that you're joining us today. I think it's really a great thing for you to register on Zoom. We have about 50 people, I think, coming to Zoom with us today. And you'll be the ones that get to ask the questions at the end. There's a Q&A function at the bottom. And if you'd like to say anything to me or to Meryl, please put your questions in your Q&A box. And we'll get to those questions towards the end of about a half-hour interview. So today's Zoom with the Jew is with Meryl Alcabes, who is a photographer. I just wanted to let you know that next week we have an amazing Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel Independence Day conversation with the creators of Israel Story. And some of you may have seen Israel Story before, but Mishi Harman and Yochai Maital, who have performed at the JCC. Israel Story is This American Life in Israel. It is the #1 Jewish podcast around the world, and we're really excited to hear from them. They are also doing an amazing event the day before called Israpalooza, and there's live concerts. It's an all-day event, so go to our Facebook page or our website. Our Facebook page is at Seattle JFF, and you can click on this event as well as next week's event and watch it on Facebook. Enter your questions, and hopefully sign up to go and see Israpalooza. So with that, I wanted to welcome our guest today, Meryl Alcabes, and just say a couple of words about her project, which is her family Porch Portraits project. But in particular, I wanted to say that, you know, photography has often been called the window to the soul. People would say a picture can have 1,000 words, but in the Jewish world, we call this the neshama, right? The soul. And I'd love to start by asking Meryl a little bit about, at this time of the COVID crisis, the Corona quarantine, there's been a lot of photographers around the country who've been trying to capture this moment. And it's not so much what a photographer usually captures, which would be sort of smiles, right? It would be instead sort of the soul and people living in quarantine. There have been a number of photographers who have tried to capture this moment. And in a moment, I'll share some of those images. I'm really happy to see we have about 23 people logged in. But Meryl, tell us a little bit about you as a photographer and how this project was started.
Okay, Pamela, thank you. Well, I'm usually an event photographer, and by early March, when we started staying home, all my jobs were canceled, and so someone shared with me, a young friend of mine, Abby Brockman, shared with me what another photographer was doing in Tennessee. She said, Meryl, you should do this. And I didn't know, photographing people on their front porches with the ideas like, how are you dealing with the stay-at-home order? And so I wasn't sure if there'd be interest in this. So I put it out to a women's WhatsApp group in my neighborhood. And I immediately, within half an hour, I had 20 responses. Yes, yes, we want to do it, we want to do it. So I had said that the prompt will be, how is your family dealing with the stay-at-home order, with the pandemic, however you say it, quarantine? So I started photographing, and I had 1 day of photography and 2 days and 3 days. And, I just told people, show me how you're dealing with this situation. And people set up, most people are not super happy with the situation, but they put a good face on it. So it isn't exactly what I think of as documentary photography, because most people are smiling in a situation where I would say most of the day people are not so smiley, but people are putting a good face on it and coming out and communicating with the rest of the neighborhood. So everybody is viewing. I've put these on Facebook, and people are viewing them and say, hey, hi, I haven't seen you in a while. I've had people from Israel say, it's like a trip through Seward Park. It's so great to see everybody. And it's been a lot of fun. I mean, most of all, for me, it's been a lot of fun. And it's reminded me, so when I've been a photographer since high school, and it was for many, many years, it was my hobby. And about 10 years ago, I went back to school, became a professional photographer, and now it's not my hobby anymore, it's my job. And I love my job, but I have to say it's not quite as fun as it was when it was my hobby. And I was realizing that today, that this project, I'm not getting paid for these photos. I don't expect anyone to pay me. This is for me. This project is for me, and it's fun again. It's making photography fun again for me. And everybody's so excited about the project. So I have a list of like 20 more families I'm going to photograph over the next few days. And there are more. I mean, there are more outside the neighborhood that I haven't gotten to yet.
So obviously I'm scrolling through some of the photos for those who are on the call and who are on Facebook Live. And this is happening around the country. There are a lot of photographers that are taking photos of people in their moments. And I've tried, I know there are stories behind some of these photos, but I'm wondering, what have these photos meant to the people that you are photographing? What have you heard from them and their experience of this? I know you said it's for you, but one person said, and I quote, Meryl brings out the sunshine.
Well, I think that people, they're not going to come out of their house and really show how depressed they are or how they hate staying at home. People are putting a good face on this, but I've had several moms tell me, because I started with moms, that's why I put it out there too. A lot of people said, oh, it's if I haven't put on makeup for a month, you know, gave me a reason to comb my hair, gave me a reason to get out of bed. And I think it's cheering people up, and we can all see each other's faces. I never thought I would say I miss synagogue, because I mean, we go, but I'm a very social person, so I go to synagogue, but I really miss it. And I miss all the togetherness we have and in this community. We spend a lot of time together, and meals. I mean, Shabbat meals. I miss having people over. And so it's nice to see, but I'm getting to actually talk with them, but people are enjoying seeing each other in the photos.
I think one of the assumptions and one of the great things about this conversation is that we've also been sharing the Zoom with the Jew with people across the JCC platforms across the country. So maybe we could just take a moment to establish that togetherness that you're talking about. Not everyone will know the geography of Seattle, will know where you're photographing from, Seward Park, and what that signifies in the Jewish community here. And also, as I'm looked, you know, some of the photographers that started capturing, and I'll share a screenshot in a moment, the first photos I think that came out on the New York Times were of empty streets, right? It was the emptiness and this bereftness that we experienced. The next set of photos, quarantine photos, were, you know, people said, oh, the good news is I've got a great camera in my pocket and I have Instagram. The bad news is I can only photograph my apartment. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Seward Park in particular, for those who may not know about it, and why this is a unique portrait, family portrait, PORCH, as I like to say, of our Jewish community. And why is that significant?
Well, Seward Park, we moved into this community almost 30 years ago, and there are 6 synagogues all within walking distance. There are Sephardic synagogues, there's modern Orthodox, there's what do you call it, Black Hat Orthodox. Each synagogue has its own personality and its own community, but we mingle a lot. And Shabbat is the most important. Shabbat and holidays, we're together, and we get together with people from other synagogues. We see each other, we walk around. Saturday we're walking to synagogue, we're walking to the park, we walk around Seward Park, and not seeing people is just such a, staying home and not seeing other people. You know, we might pass each other in the street and then we make sure we're separate from each other, but It's very difficult, and it's just not normal for my community. I know I've met people in my life that say, oh, I live out in the woods and my nearest neighbor is 5 miles away. I just love that. And I think, oh, I would never want to live like that. That's a horrible way to live. I love that I know my neighbors. I pretty much know everyone that lives on this block, and I know lots of people that are within walking distance, and it makes me very happy that I do. And not seeing people was very difficult. So ever since Purim, I went to synagogue on Purim, and it was very empty, and it felt very sad, and then things got sadder and sadder, and then the shuls had to close. So it's just not our neighborhood, not as normal. And it's very difficult. So
I also think there's something about having run the Seattle Jewish Film Festival and being somebody who puts Jewish culture on stage and has always been interested in the representation of Jewish people in popular culture, whether it's museums or exhibits or, Kurt Weill's dance show to show off what Palestine and Israel could look like at some point at Madison Square Garden in the 30s, and World's Fairs. These are places where we put ourselves into popular culture. You've kind of done that. And obviously I want to tell folks that the whole gallery is available on the Arts and Ideas Facebook page, which I'll show off in just a moment. But what does it mean to put folks with seat and kippahs and with their families? I know you talked about togetherness and of Shabbat, and those are things we celebrate inside. You've put people onto their porches and into the light of day. Have you thought through the sort of notion of really loud and proud putting your and the Orthodox community out into our wider world?
I think that photographers, probably, all artists, we depict what we know. So this is my community. I've lived here for a long time. This is what I know. This is all I know. Not all I know, but this is my community, and I've tried to get away from it and do different projects, but the projects that are closest to my heart are when I am depicting something in the community. I did a big show of the woman's role in the Orthodox community, which was something that I learned about when we moved here. I grew up conservative, didn't grow up Orthodox. We chose to move here, and the things that I found that I didn't really realize I would be living. So keeping kosher, we had to learn to keep kosher. We started keeping Shabbat, and there were bumps along the way. But it's overall been a really wonderful experience. And my kids grew up in this neighborhood. My oldest son now has come back here with his wife and baby. And my youngest son says he's planning to come back to Seattle. So I feel that even if they choose to move away, they know where they came from. They have a very strong identity. And this is my community. And I think most artists would say they show what they know. You can't really speak to another situation. You show the community that you know, so.
Oh, I love that. I think as we continue to look at some of your gallery photos, I pulled together some that in particular showed aspects of the, Orthodox community that we don't often see. For example, we think about Shabbat, you don't use technology, right? You put that down, and I put together a series of your photos which just have families being families, right? And of course, everybody's got their device. And I'm wondering if there's any particular stories about how these moments happened for you, or what it is that they decided to portray. Because like I said, they're showing something about themselves. And they're not only showing them to you, they're showing them to themselves as well. So what do we glean from some of these images in particular, and the technology that's coming through?
I told people to think about that before I showed up. I wanted them to think about how their family is dealing with the stay-at-home situation. And some people are, I mean, most people are really excited about it. And I asked them to think about what they wanted to portray, because these pictures will be for them in the future. How did we get through this? And a lot of people said, well, we're gardening. We don't usually garden, but we're gardening. Other families, a lot of families said, well, we're on our computer a lot. And if that's what they wanted to show, then, you know, whatever they wanted to show me. And some people, cooking was a big one. Alcohol was mentioned. Trying to think of what else. Animals, a lot of people were photographed with their animals. Pets have become really important at this time. Walking the dog gives you an excuse to walk the dog 5 times a day. Even little animals, you know.
So what surprised you? What are the things that really surprised you in doing this project?
I was surprised that so many people were willing to, I mean, people jumped at the chance to be photographed. I think that people are thinking, I think we all think, how will I mark this time in our lives? None of us have ever experienced anything like this. A pandemic is an unusual, thank God, it's an unusual situation. And wouldn't we want to look back and say, well, how did you get through it? To our grandchildren. How did we live through this time where we couldn't leave our house? I'm not even sure I should be leaving the house, but I had a hard time staying home for a few weeks. So this is cheering me up. But how do we do it? How do we live through it? And I haven't actually, I photographed my son and his wife. And I'd like to, our family is separated because my grandson's gone back to daycare. So we can't mix with them. So they come for Shabbat lunch and they eat on our deck and we eat inside. So we're together apart together, whatever. And that's what I would like to show for my family. How are we dealing with this? We're seeing the baby, but we're seeing him from afar, which is really difficult. That's the hardest thing for me during this.
So I think you had some stories to share in particular, and obviously we just came through the narrow passage, not only of the beginning of this, you know, as we call it, the Corona kind of claustrophobia of that narrow passage, and then Passover. And there's been some great Zoom calls with, you know, Rabbi Samuel Klein and Beth Huppin and others, and we all find our inspiration where we need it. We Zoomed where some believed in permission to Zoom, others didn't feel it was the right thing to do. What does this picture in particular say? Because this is a Passover picture, if any.
Yeah, I was surprised that I don't think there was any other family that showed me anything to do with Pesach. But this family said, well, we have gone away for 28 years. And this is the first time in 28 years we're home during doing Passover, just our family. We actually went away with them last year. We all went to Italy. So, but I usually do Pesach, so it wasn't so strange for me. So they had to find all their Pesach things, and this is what they wanted to show. And so I said, sure, we should have a Pesach photo. I mean, so the holiday is represented. And I thought it was great.
What kind of conversations were you having with people while this was going on? And were they talking about how they were coping or sharing? Or is it like after I was in the San Francisco earthquake, everybody over a burrito wanted to just chit chat away? Yeah. Were there particular conversations that were coming up?
I think that people told me maybe what was the hardest. People with a lot of kids at home are finding it hard to keep their kids entertained. People with younger kids that can't really do, the older kids can do their Zoom classes, they can maybe go out, bicycle around, but the younger kids are, you know, if you're a parent, if you're a 2-parent household and you're both trying to work from home and you have little kids who can't go to school or daycare, that's a real difficult situation. And I don't know how people are dealing with it, but it's hard. So people will talk about that they're looking for things for the kids to do. They're doing artwork or they're watching a lot more screens. People talk about the challenges. And some people found Pesach really difficult to do alone. I know for us, we actually did a Zoom Seder. We left it up to the kids. I wasn't sure if they would think that was okay or not, but they decided, yeah. So we got together. There were, I think, 8 families in our Zoom. And my daughter-in-law set it up, and she was really strict. She said, after 7:30, nobody can come in. If you're not registered and in the Zoom, we're setting it up on the table. That's it. You're not in. But everybody got in, and we had a Seder. It was really wonderful. I was surprised how well it went. And then by the second night, we weren't on Zoom anymore. So my husband and I had, I think, the only 2-person Seder we've ever made. So we did the highlights. So yeah, it was. And so both Seders are very different from anything we've ever done before. People have mentioned that. There's a lot of, I've noticed how there are a lot of people who are stepping up to help. So those of us who are in the older group, and we're not supposed to go to the grocery store, so a lot of younger people are going. And so this WhatsApp group with women, like a lot of the younger women are offering to go. You know, I'm going to Safeway, does anybody need anything? I'm going to Costco, I'm going to, and it's really wonderful to see how anyone who can is really stepping up to help. And there was one family that had coronavirus. They had COVID-19, and they came down with it right before Passover. And this group of women got together and provided everything for them. And that was really wonderful. Someone brought me meat yesterday. They had a sale at QFC on kosher meat, and I wasn't going to go to QFC. And someone in the neighborhood, Francine Burke, said, "I'll go. I'll pick you up some meat." I was like, "Wow, thank you." So
Wow.
It's people really stepping up. That I see that.
Yeah. So you wanted to share another story, and I have a photo here. Could you tell us a little bit about what's happening in this photo?
Yeah, so this family contacted me, the Amiels contacted me. Their daughter was turning 12 yesterday, and she's supposed to have her bat mitzvah on Memorial Day weekend. And everything's canceled, and that's really difficult for her. So they arranged a drive-by birthday party, and all her friends came, the moms came, drove the girls, and they brought signs, they brought gifts. It was a lot of fun, and I was really honored that they included me in this and let me photograph. I mean, who's ever been to a drive-by birthday party before? So
I love it. So if you would just give us a minute to tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to photography. And then some questions are starting to filter in, some comments I'd love to share with you. You know, I've gotten a "you rock," Meryl. Clearly you do, and you've been offering to take photos of other people in the community. But maybe you could just tell us a little bit about, this is, your journey as a photographer began 10 years ago. This was like a third, fourth career.
Mm-hmm.
What's brought you to this moment? What else have you done in your life that has helped you kind of become the photographer that you are? Because clearly you have captured something in this project and a shama of our community, and especially of the Seward Park community. And not everyone can do that.
Oh, thank you. That's very sweet. Well, I've had several careers before this one. I studied anthropology in college, and I worked as a travel agent, and I worked in public relations. And we moved to Spain, and I went to art school in Spain, which was wonderful. Then I had kids. And then we bought this furniture store. And my husband and I ran the furniture store together for 20 years. And when my middle son came into the business, I left and went back to photography school about 10 years ago. And I started my business around then. And I found that what I really liked best was events. I like to be an event photographer. I like moving around. A lot of photographers don't enjoy doing that, but I like moving around, trying to capture relationships between people, and that's what I enjoy. So now I have no business. There's no events. No events are going on. I had all my events were canceled. And I do nonprofit events, corporate events. I do bar mitzvah parties. And so I needed a project. I mean, the first couple weeks of this, I was I would wake up in the morning, I'd check Facebook, then maybe I'd go back to sleep and I'd check Facebook some more. And I really needed, I realized I do much better with a project. So when I heard about this idea about photographing families, I'm like, oh, yes, I'll do it, I'll do it. I get up in the morning and I've got my list of people I have to photograph, and then I come home and I got hours of editing and I send them the pictures. I'm happy. I mean, this works for me. So, and it's more like a hobby. It's not, it doesn't feel to me like a real serious project. I'm capturing people, more like snapshots. I'm not spending a lot of time with this. I don't think I should be with people for too much time. I try and keep my distance. I'm like 10 or 20 feet away. And it's been great for me. And people will have something to mark this time. I will have something to mark this time. And people said, oh, make it into a book. I don't know if people would be interested in a book of this, but whatever. And then, now I see on the screen the Seattle Times. Yeah, the Seattle Times came and followed me around one day. That was a lot of fun. They published a really ugly photo of me, but I'll never forgive them for that. But otherwise, my kids said, oh, Mom, you're looking bossy. That's appropriate. So
we have some questions that are coming through. I wanted to invite everybody to ask their questions. And so I wanted to start with, will you have anyone photograph you, this is from June, and your family on your porch?
Well, I do have several photographer friends, so I might try and arrange that. Yeah, it's a great idea, and I should do it. Yeah, thank you, June.
And how do you see yourself vis-a-vis some other photographers who've been doing this? I think Minnesota, Nashville, even our good friend Danny Weiss, who photographed the festival for years. I've started to see those come out in her new community in Atlanta. But Donna asks, have you thought about continuing this project to other neighborhoods? Obviously, we've got some challenges around that right now, but what do you think?
Right. Oh, I can drive anywhere. Yeah. So I've had requests from the North End, a few families. So I think one day next week I'll go to the North End. I've also had a request or two in West Seattle. So I can drive in my car anywhere. So in the area. So
I know that the Jewish Historical Society was collecting, Haggadah, Passover, but it feels for me like this moment of you capturing the Seattle Jewish community and Jewish neighborhoods is a very unique contribution even across the country. Have you seen any other photographers who have found a niche community specifically to focus on, or has it mostly been neighborhoods?
I think I've seen a few photographers' projects, and I think they're mostly neighborhoods. They're neighbors. I actually want to do that also. I want to do my immediate neighbors because that's a different demographic. So I'd like to do that also. I haven't seen that anyone's done a community like our Jewish community. I haven't seen that, so.
So what has this kind of ultimately meant to you? You said you were an event photographer, and yet you made an event for people ultimately out of this project. And we all kind of needed an event. We really, not that this is not eventful, and it has been sad and devastating for many, but like I said, Meryl brings the sunshine, I think it was Rabbi Benzicain who said that. I can't remember who was quoted, but there's something about your creation and the process of creating this event that has really brought tremendous joy to people. Again, I invite everybody who's in the Zoom, and there's about 30 of us here, to ask some other questions because we're kind of winding down. But what does it mean that you've created an event in people's lives by giving them a portrait of who they are at this critical moment? And as we start to kind of go inward and think about these moments, what do you see this body of work saying about that event you've created?
I don't know that this body of work is actually so truthful, because a lot of us have spent time being scared, being lonely, and this body of work does not represent that at all. So when I think of documenting a time, I think of photos like Migrant Mother that documented, the WPA photographers documented the Depression. And this isn't that kind of project. I'm missing that part of it. And I'd like to include some of that, but I'm not quite sure how. I don't think people want to show me the negative. Everyone's come out from their house and it's fun to see somebody, it's fun that I'm there, and it's all very upbeat. And I'm not seeing the negative, and I don't know how to include that. That would be a challenge. That's a challenge for me.
It's really interesting because obviously those of us that do social media, Facebook and otherwise, this has been something that people talk about with social media, is that people do put their best face out there. There's actually documentation of people who experienced sort of depression about their own lives as a result of this perfect world people have created. Yeah. There is something about the kind of cheekiness, though, of the way people are portraying themselves in your photography that is giving us a window that this is not normal. It is not truth. It is playful, which I think is really unique. But it's an interesting thing, a nut to crack, which is how do we get at the truth of this particular experience? Do you feel that that's something that you need to do, or is it you just really let people do what they need to do in their photos?
I'm leaving it up to people to show me what they want to show me. And I feel it's lacking truth. This isn't how we're spending our days, jumping around and having fun and thumbs up. And it's a lot deeper. I mean, well, there's a range of emotions. I'm sure part of the day we are enjoying being with our families, and part of the days we'd like to strangle our other family members because of whatever. It's difficult to be together all the time. So I'm not quite sure how to show that. I thought this family was cute, where they had, the last family had the little girl had a batch of snacks, and everybody else had, you know, the computer or whatever. And I said, so does everybody want this? How does everybody feel about the snacks? And then the next picture, I'm not sure if you have it on, they all were reaching into the snacks. I thought, well, that might be a more truthful photo. But yeah, I let people show me what they wanted. I left it open. Show me how your family's dealing with the situation.
Yeah, I've got a couple more questions. So is there one family that really touched you?
Well, I enjoyed, I don't know if you have the picture of the family with the chicken.
I can take a look while we're talking. Yep, let me take a look. Go ahead.
That's a young family. They have their little girl. She's a little under 2. She's at home. They also have a dog. They got a lot going on. And they just got, during just the last few weeks, they got a hold of a couple of chickens because they had a chicken run at their house, the house they're renting. And I said, oh, I'd like to include the chicken. And they said, well, we've never picked up the chicken. I said, well, yeah, you could. I've seen people pick up chickens. You can pick up a chicken, pick up the chicken. So they brought the chicken, and just that chicken added a lot to the photo. I mean, it didn't really say much about what they were doing during the quarantine, but it was really funny. I mean, the way the little girl is like touching the chicken, and the dog is looking, and everything is focused on the chicken.
You know what we'll have to do is I'd like to add that to our Facebook page.
Okay.
So for those who joined us a little late, if you go to @SeattleJFF or Meryl's Facebook page, you can see a lot of these. We actually created a singular gallery so that all of these photos could be in one place, and I'm sure Meryl will do that next. But I love putting you out there. It's been so wonderful. I have 2 or 3 more questions, and then I think we'll just kind of see if anybody else, you have your final questions, please join us. Have you thought of taking candid shots of families instead of posed families, which is a question also from June?
I like doing candid photography. It's a little difficult because I've told them what time I'm going to be there, and we meet on their porch, and I'm only there for 5 or 10 minutes. So that is a challenge. I mean, to actually document the situation, candid photos would be great, but I don't really have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, totally. Well, Meryl, is there any other kind of last minute things that you'd like to share with us about this moment? You know, I'm hoping it's more than your 15 minutes. I think other neighborhoods, other communities, we should keep this project going. Obviously, we're all sheltering in and trying to avoid quarantine, and you are a ray of sunshine. and you've brought a lot of this to our community, and clearly I can tell by the 50 people that wanted to Zoom in today. Any other final things you'd like to tell us about your project and what it's meant to people?
I think I'd like to say that I'm really lucky because I have a creative outlet, and between doing the photographs, I'm doing online. There are a lot of free online art classes. So I find that if I do one thing creative a day, I feel a lot better about myself during this situation where we can't go anywhere. We have this furniture business that's being challenged during this time, and things are tough. And things are tough for a lot of people. And I don't know about other people, everyone else, but if I can do one creative thing a day, if you can find one, learn to play an instrument or take a class of some sort, and you feel just a little bit of accomplishment a day, I don't know about anybody else, but that makes me feel better. And doing this project is great. That I wake up excited. Who am I visiting today? I have a list, and it's great. And it's made me feel really a lot happier. And I hope everyone else can find something to do also.
I think that's a beautiful message. I did want to give a shout out. I understand that some of my colleagues from the J that I haven't seen in a while are online. Friends also from the Film Festival Committee are online, but specifically Dana, Diane, and Lori, just wanted to say hi to everybody. And wanted to thank you all for coming for our last, this week, the last show of this week. On Sunday, we drop a new Bagel Bites with, I think this week is Pork Chop and Company, great name, right? Is Paul Osher, who makes a mean bagel. Please check out that series. And again, next week we have a full lineup on Tuesday with a local filmmaker as well, Lisa Cohen, for the Divanathon, and on Thursday, we're going to be interviewing the creators of Israel's Story for Israel Independence Day. But Meryl, you are a light, and I love that you've asked us all to get creative. So hopefully we'll take some photos of our own families, and maybe if you send them to me at PamelaL@sjcc.org, if those of you can't get Meryl to come to your own homes to do your portrait, take your family portrait and send it to me at PamelaL@sjcc.org, and I will put it into the gallery on our Facebook page. So with that, Meryl, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you as a guest, and thank you all for coming. And any last words, Meryl?
Yeah, you can find the photographs on my website at www.merylalcabes.com. You can find the photos there under, I think it's under in the event, under events, and they're not all there yet. I'll be putting them on more tonight or tomorrow, and you can see the photos there. And if you're not too far away from where I live, get in touch with me through my website, and we'll see if I'll come to your house. I'll try and come to your place and photograph your family.
Well, congratulations, Mazel Tov, on a really great community project, neighborhood project, and national project, I hope. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Emma.